Am ajuns la Niagara?
Nu. Acum a pornit. Și avem varză de sarmală și băgăm la frigidală. Viața e grea. O, băieții ăștia vorbesc despre tampoane. Drumul spre Tito.
Avem pijama aparte aici.
Pijama, ia. Ok, gata. Am încheiat această...
Chinezii sunt, ei lucrează necondiționat. Poți să dai orice problemă. Simplă, grea, efortul este același.
Vreau să mă apuce de development. Mare vânză, e în si, deci nu e...
E cu stocul de 300. Acum sunt ca market de dolari. Deci acum sunt numai a doua ca și market.
Da. Așa.
În România și diversi indivizi.
Așa?
Da. Mulți am puțin legați de matematică, mă dau la că picul...
Nu-mi dau patru.
Hai mă, că ea sunt apăranți, ea întreabă și altă lucru.
Mie mi se pare că și
Da, auzi, tot e bine că n-ai luat, sper că n-ai luat Nortel la 1000.
Nu. Deci, tu l-ai văzut oare că ai pus
eu sunt falsă aici.
Așa, așa?
Filmează pe
Alina, Mariana în activitate.
Alina a fost în activitate, nu eu.
Așa. Ce pui tu acolo?
Punem și niște ceapă verde sau o lăsăm simplă?
Laurențiu, tu ce ai acolo?
Aici sunt resturile de la tăvițele de mici. Micii sunt pe grătar. Grătarul este afară.
Punem mâncăm cu ceapă?
Da, da.
Acum înainte să dea bine.
Numai să ne iasă și ochii, mă.
Gândim să trească domnul șofer?
Da, e cântăm, da.
Elena, întoarce-te. Ok, good.
Da, se moa.
Mă dragă din partea aia.
Mi-a zis că o să ne dea altă mașină de la prima winery, ca asta trage un pic către dreapta. Dar vorbește serios.
Oare și filmează asta nu prea. Care nici am început să...
Pentru că suntem în Europa, suntem majoritari europeni aici.
Suntem adaptabili.
Și conform discuției avute, în Europa nu este aer condiționat. Bun, ajungem acum.
Poate în sud, tu ai venit cam de curând în Canada. Noi nu mai suntem așa adaptabili ca voi.
I've worked in the industry down here as long as I can remember now, probably since before I was old enough to drink. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate. We're going to give you a great introduction to some Niagara wines today. We're going to try a selection of whites, reds, as well as some of our, of course, most famous product being our ice wines as well. And Pilotary being, of course, the kings of ice wine, this is a great place for us to start. So Rob's going to show you guys around the winery a bit, and I'm going to take you right down into the cellar.
Doina, cum să filmezi și mirosul? A?
It's going to be anywhere between 500 to 1,000 barrels of wine down here on any given year, depending on the vintage. If it's a real good vintage year, perhaps when it's really hot, dry, and sunny, they might decide to make more table wine because those vintage years won't come around.
Deci ăla, five course, e o idee foarte bună. Că deja mi-e foame de mor.
Great care of Andrew Peller. No. So guys, I do want to introduce you to this winery, as well as to give me a little bit of a chance. I know a lot of us here haven't had much Canadian wine, but to give you some perspective on the history of our winery and why it is that we grow grapes here. And I think that's really important to understand. If you look out here, you can see acres and acres of vineyard. They're stretching out to the horizon today, so where most of you started your day was just on the top of that ridge that sits on the horizon. That's the Niagara Escarpment. And if you actually look off in the distance, you can see some of the hotels and the Skylon Tower in Niagara Falls, so we have a pretty good vantage point up here. Now, the importance of that feature can't really be underestimated. Now, I'm sure as Mr. Pelletieri talked about a little bit, this area was known for tender fruit long before it was used for growing wine varieties. There has been grape growing in Niagara for over 150 years, but of course those grapes weren't exactly the type that you would use to make high-quality wine. They make great use of jelly. But we've only been planting wine grapes commercially since the mid-1970s, so it is a very new industry for us. And the area where we're able, we have a unique microclimate, is pretty much the southern border of is that ridge right there. It represents about a 450-foot change of elevation from the tip of the escarpment all the way to the foot of Lake Ontario. And it's within that gap from here, heading northbound towards the lake, that wine grapes can be sustained. And what happens is the heat from the sun is absorbed by Lake Ontario. It's like a big heat sink, like a hot water bottle, and that helps to moderate the climate throughout. Now the warm air, as it moves off the lake, it hits that escarpment. Even though it doesn't look that big, it plays the role of almost like a retaining wall for all that warm, moist air, and it recirculates through Niagara, and it draws our growing season about 3 to 4 weeks longer than you would find in even Niagara Falls. So it's a very small area. I wouldn't hesitate to call us a fringe wine region because there is a pretty well-defined boundary of where we can sustain what we do here. Now, of course, we are a cool climate, and we've already talked a bit about how white varieties tend to be easier to grow down here as well, but we do make some great reds as well. Mr. Pelletieri talked a bit about Bordeaux's. Also great Pinot Noir as well is another great variety for red wine that will grow quite well here. So, the winery that we're looking at right now, these are the vineyards for Hillebrand Estates. And Hillebrand is one of the largest wineries in all of Canada. To put it in perspective, the last winery we're at makes about 50 or 60,000 cases of wine a year. Here at Hillebrand, they make about 600,000 cases of wine a year. Now, their parent company here is Andrew Peller Estates, which is, as a whole entity, the largest wine company in Canada. Their production reaches almost 2 million cases in total for a whole year. So they are, again, very big producers for this area. Now, this winery actually didn't start off owned by the Pellers. It was actually first started by a gentleman named Joseph Pohorley. And Dr. Joseph actually still owns a winery and grapeseed oil business down the road here, but he sold Hillebrand Estates in the 1980s to Andrew Peller, and they pumped about $4 million into the property and modernized it and brought it to what you see today. At the time, the winery was actually called Newark Wines, and they actually have the claim of being the first to ever produce ice wine in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So, and of course, they're still leaders in that. They have a few famous wine brands that most Canadians will recognize very well. One of them is their Trius brand, which is a very consistently good wine brand that they've been had released since the late 1980s, and it's probably the one that people recognize most. They also do a series of what they call their showcase wines, which are their higher end, higher price point reds and whites, as well as they include some of their ice wines in that category. And they have their artist series, which is just kind of your everyday easy drinking wines. But they have an excellent range here. And their property, they house the production for 3 different wineries here, not only their own, for Peller Estates, as well as for a few other wine brands that the Pellers own as well. So there's estate vineyards here. They have about 40 acres on the property, but their company is one of the largest purchasers of grapes in Ontario. Between the owners of Inniskillen and Jackson Triggs, a company called Vincor, and Andrew Peller Estates, they buy 2/3 of all the wine grapes in Ontario. So they are very big players in the market down here, and a very important winery for the Canadian scheme as well. Now, of course, they have a fine dining restaurant here. They're one of the only wineries in Niagara to actually have an on-site restaurant, and it's something that they've been developing and growing over the years as well. So it's kind of a neat opportunity. You can try some regional foods, mashed with some regional wines. They have a fantastic lunch, so if you're ever hungry down in Niagara-on-the-Lake, always a cool place to check out. But I just wanted to show you guys the view up here, because I think it's really beautiful, and we have a nice sunset, and I think we could all probably go for a little more wine. Alright guys. And the best match, absolute favorite match with an ice wine like this is either foie gras or blue cheese. And if you like foie, have you ever had sauterre and foie gras? That's to die for. And you're going to go for a similar method here, because the richness and that saltiness, all that fattiness in the ice wine mixes a little beautifully with the intense flavors of the foie.
I prefer blue cheese than foie gras. You? You prefer the foie gras?
Take your time with it because it is so sweet. Actually, take a sip of it and let it linger on your palate for about 5 to 7 seconds. And it'll really start to taste your palate will acclimatize to the sweetness of the wine and it'll start to taste a lot more flavors. After you swallow, a little bit of air across your tongue, like you're having a nice nibble. And you feel the acidity. It's also very important. This is more like a traditional.
Predau statistică și finanțe. Finanțe? Da, eu am făcut master de finanțe în Franța înainte să vin aici. În Franța? Da. Mi-am dat seama că e ceva...
Neața.
Așa. Masa română.
Good morning. Okay.
Okay. It's okay. So you go there.
That's us. It was on all the time.
Wonderful. It's okay. Now you know what's inside my purse, right?
Do you see something red there? It's on.
It's red. Yeah. It's
Glad to see you guys. Bye.
One more, Natasha, just one more if you don't mind. Hai, nu sta atacare.
Nu, e o chestie de plastic numai, dar probabil ca să dea acces la ceva.
să mai vadă și asta, nu e ca să iei.
Da direct în autostradă?
Canadian Opera Company. One extraordinary moment after another. Had enough of the concrete jungle? Here's the antidote. Escape to my oasis, a sea of tranquility in the middle of the afternoon. Igor's Torrance drops by the one-day oasis at 3:30 to talk about tunnel music production.